Honored to have my brother back here with me on Mea Culpa, BDD, Brooklyn Dad Defiant, in the house. How we doing there, B?
I am doing as well as anybody is under the circumstances. Thank you for having me back.
Really good to see you. Look, there's a lot to talk about, so I'm going to jump right into it. And I want to start off with obvious. Despite a court order and a recent U.S. Supreme Court directive mandating Abrigo Garcia's return, both presidents, that's President Trump and President Bukele, they claim that they lack the authority to repatriate him. So the question that I really want to ask you is who? Who then holds this power? And what does this impasse reveal about the enforcement of judicial decisions in any of these immigration deportation cases?
I'm glad you asked me that, Michael, because frankly, they both hold the power, especially if Trump is like, saying, hey, I can't do it because it's the El Salvador president, then the El Salvador president has the wherewithal to make it happen. But, he had the wherewithal to allow Kristi Noem to stage some stupid cosplay event in his prison. So he can do whatever the heck he wants to do. Trump can do what you telling me the most powerful position on the planet has no control over the people that he is sending to the El Salvador. And I think, aren't we paying them? Aren't we paying them to take our prison? So come on now. This is bullshit. It's total bullshit.
Right. And could you imagine? So I was going to bring that up. Allegedly, and according to Trump, the United States government is somehow compensating El Salvador $6 million plus, a shitload less than what we pay for the prison system here in the United States. But then again, that's union. My question is, if we are paying $6 million, how is it possible that Kristi Noem, it's possible for Tom Harmon, for Marco Rubio, for the president of El Salvador, not to call up the warden and say to him, I need you to have prisoner 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 removed and placed into street clothes that we're going to send over, put him onto the airplane that President Bukele took in order to get here, and turn him back over to immigration here in the United States for his due process rights. I don't get it either. None of it makes any sense.
Yeah, it's a load of garbage. The same exact energy that they used to take that man and remove him from the United States. They took him with authority, like they had the right to do it. They took him and threw him into that prison. They should use that same energy to take him back. And I think it's an absolute outrage, and it's a joke that they were in court last week, and the judge was like, "Well, where is this? Where is the prisoner? Well, we don't know. What kind of garbage is this?" And you have a Supreme Court verdict. How often do we see a 9-0 verdict? Like never, right? Almost never. See, get a 9-0 verdict for them to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia, and they're pulling this shit. So we are now officially in a constitutional crisis.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I mean, the funny part is where the Trump team, the enablers, continue to assert a misguided belief that the Supreme Court's decision is actually a benefit to them, right? That they don't have to do it. They just have to attempt to do it, that they have to facilitate the return of this guy, not effectuate. There's a big difference between the two words, including the fact that Attorney General Pam Bondi asserts, and did so in the Oval Office today, that the responsibility of Garcia's return no longer lies with the president or the American party, but rather lies with El Salvador. My question to you is, does this stance effectively sidestep U.S. legal obligations? And worse, what precedent does it set for future international legal compliance when you're able to just deflect and dish it off to somebody else?
Michael, it sounds like they're playing a whole lot of semantics here to sidestep their responsibility and ownership of this thing. So it doesn't bode well if we have a judiciary, a Supreme Court that is kind of they're teeing it up for them with when you pointed out the verbiage that they used, facilitate instead of, did you say effectuate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the distinction between facilitate and effectuate.
Yeah. So they're leaving them just enough wiggle room for it to be like, hey, who knows, bro? Who knows? Maybe it's his job. Maybe it's our job. Who knows? Who has the authority? But at the end of the day, somebody has the authority between these two parties, the United States and El Salvador. It's not really that complicated. They're making it more complicated than it is. I wonder if the guy is even still alive at this point. And number one. And number two, what worries me more than anything is that the precedent that this sets, is that they got him into the air before a judge had a chance to weigh in on this. And Donald Trump was mentioned something about next up is the homegrown criminals, right? And so they're calling that guy a terrorist and that he was MS-13, whatever. But how is he accidentally sent? But he's also, he actually does fit the profile of somebody that you wanted to send. So that doesn't ring true.
Right.
And secondly, what is the threat to American citizens? Be they criminals or just they could just be people who are critical of Donald Trump. I mean, he was talking about wanting to sue CBS. He wants them off the air because he didn't like what they said about him in 60 Minutes. This is a guy who will take as much or take even more rope than you give him. He'll take more authority than he has. And so nobody is checking him. No, we're supposed to have checks and balances, and he is out of control. So I'm concerned for American citizens, that we could one day wake up in a foreign prison with no way back home.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. But I want to touch on something that you brought up. They labeled Garcia as a terrorist. They labeled him as a terrorist without a conviction. He has no criminal past. They labeled him a terrorist, meaning both administrations justified his continued detention. That's Trump's and also Buchel's administration. The question I want to ask you, how does this align with principles of due process and the presumption of innocence? Because the way I keep seeing it, if in fact, and what's her name, Caroline Leavitt is phenomenal at repeating the buzzwords, memorized the slogans, memorized the paragraph, as did Marco Rubio today, as did Pam Bondi, as did J.D. Vance. My question is, what happens to the principle of presumption of innocence? In the Torah, we always say, better 100 guilty men go free than one innocent man be incarcerated, be held against his will. That's the Bible that says that. And that's what our founding fathers thought of when they were creating the checks and balances. But here, there is no checks and balance. They grabbed them, they bagged them, they tagged them, they shipped them off to a jail. And before the Maryland judge was even able to issue the ruling on paper, they shot him off to Venezuela, to El Salvador. They shot him off to El Salvador. And now they're telling you that they can't bring him back. I agree with you. This is problematic.
Yeah. First of all, I love that quote. I believe I've used that like when I was in high school for a
Yeah.
debate about capital punishment. And the whole finality of, what if it was a mistake? What if the dude was in there? Anyway, aside from that, yeah. Our country, the United States of America, is still a special place on the planet, in how we stand. We're supposed to stand above, places like North Korea and Russia, and places where dictators run the show however they feel like it, where there is no due process. And here, there's the presumption of innocence. That is a special thing on this planet. And if we let that if we let that just fall by the wayside, we're not America anymore. We're not America. We're not that shining city on a hill anymore. We are, what Donald Trump once referred to a bunch of African countries as, we're shithole country. If we let that happen, and it's happening right now. He's got sycophants in every corner of the judicial system, whether it's Pam Bondi or Kash Patel or what's that other guy's name? Dan, I want to say Toasterhead, but that's not his last name. It's Dan something or other. He's got people who are willing to bend the law in the name of Trump, not in the name of the Constitution, not in the name of the law, just in the name of Trump, who are willing to say that guy is a terrorist without putting him on trial, without having a jury of his or her peers, and a judge. They don't care about that.
Trump is so smart about this, B. He's so smart about this. And, maybe some of my listeners will say, well, you can't say anything nice about him. No. Stop a second. He's so smart about how he's going about this. Imagine they turn around at these press conferences. He did it again in the Oval Office. Are you really telling me that you want a guy who is an MS-13 or a Tren de Aragua gang member who commits rape on an 80-year-old woman? He gets really explicit and he gets detailed in terms of the acts. Or he beats somebody over the back of the head with a baseball bat. I mean, that's like right out of the movie with Robert De Niro, Enthusiasms, right? Was it like Casino or something like that?
No, it was The Untouchables.
The Untouchables, you're right. Yeah, he gets into the very nitty-gritty, painting a very ugly picture, a really hideous picture of what this individual not just represents, but what he actually is, when none of that has been proven, that all we know is that this is what the Trump administration, the Trump enablers are saying about Garcia, with no documentation, no evidence, no anything. Just don't worry about it. We did our homework. We know what we're doing. Trust us.
Yeah, Michael, I don't want to give him credit for being smart or intelligent. As you said, I would rather characterize what he's doing as devious and conniving and dishonest, because that's what he does. That's what he has been doing for years and years. Whenever he talks about Hillary, it's crooked Hillary. Whenever he talks about Joe Biden, it's Sleepy Joe. He likes to negatively brand people. That's what he is good at. I don't know if you call it smart. It's almost like a developed reflex. I notice in his press conferences, he can't he can't say one good thing about his own accomplishments without slapping at President Biden every freaking chance he gets. Like, dude, you're president right now, okay? Joe Biden is off doing his own thing. He's at the beach or he's, hanging out with his kids. Why are you still? You're not running for president. Yeah, what? Every breath he takes is Joe Biden this and Joe Biden that. And if the election wasn't stolen from me in 2020, there wouldn't be a Ukrainian war. Dude, you promised to end the war within 24 hours of winning the election. It's been 84 days since you officially took the office. That war is still going on. Not only is it still going on, but Russia is launching brutal, vicious attacks on Ukraine. And the worst he could do was say, "Oh, they made a mistake." Like, he reserves his worst criticisms for, a Catholic priest who asked him to show mercy. And he brought the knives out for her. But Vladimir Putin killing 30 some odd people, oh, they made a mistake. That is despicable. It's despicable. And it's what he does. It's he negatively brands the people that are against him, and the people that he fears, like Vladimir Putin, he treats with kid gloves. I never heard him say one negative thing about Putin. Not one. And he blamed Zelensky. He said something like, you don't pick a fight with a country that's 20 times bigger than you. Zelensky didn't pick that fight. He didn't say, come invade us. It's maddening. It's maddening to watch it over and over, and to watch our press. Our press is ill-equipped to deal with this guy, even after.
But by the way, fortunately, you have other forms now, like Substack. I'm all over Substack because Substack, unlike TikTok, is not beholden to Trump for their existence, right? And that's where things are going now, to digital media, to places like the Mea Culpa podcast, to go to your, to your various different social media sites and programs, because it's where you can actually have a conversation that is not monitored and is not predicated on your sponsors, right? It's not predicated on whether or not you're concerned about him taking away your FCC license. That's the problem. But, when I said that he's smart, and you said it's devious and so on, Devious has a certain level of intellect to it. You got to be smart in order to be devious. That's my opinion. And I'll tell you,
give you that.
Since we're going back to the term devious, I want you to think about this for a sec. The federal judge in Maryland mandated daily updates on Garcia's situation, because you said something that I think is on the judge's mind as well. Is this guy even still alive? There are many things that he has going against him. The fact that he's innocent, that he should not have been there. He is not a member of the gangs. He's not MS-13. He's not Tren Daragua. So he doesn't fall under the protection of the gangs, which they all are. He is basically alone in this entire facility with a bunch of very bad people. The question I want to ask you is, what does this level of judicial oversight indicate about the administration's transparency and their adherence to court order?
Can you ask me that question again, please?
Yeah. In other words, what is this level of judicial oversight? The fact that the judge from Maryland was requiring government to provide him with daily updates on Garcia's situation. So what does it tell us or indicate about this administration's transparency and their adherence to the court order? Because the court order by this Maryland judge was, I want him back here. You could still detain him, but this guy has to get his due process rights. I want to see the evidence that you have determining that he is a quote unquote terrorist and falls within the rights for the deportation.
Well, it's indicative of the court not really trusting the administration. It's a shame. You've never seen anything like this before, where the court is a separate and co-equal branch of government, to the executive branch. They should be able to work hand in hand, especially, hey, Donald Trump should be like the chief law enforcement officer of the country. It should be his responsibility to want to adhere to the law as much as he expects others to adhere to the law. And he's not. He is flagrantly flouting court decisions and court verdicts. Who knows? I don't even know if that federal judge is getting the updates that they requested, but they were asking for very simple communication last week from the Trump administration, and they either couldn't or wouldn't. I say wouldn't.
Me too.
Provide it. Yeah. So it's, like I said earlier, I think we are absolutely in a constitutional crisis, and I don't know what happens at this point, since we don't have the third of our branches, which is the legislative. We don't have half of the House, and half of the Senate are, unwilling to step up and check this dude and check his lawless actions. Without that, and without the judiciary, we're kind of fucked. All I can see is, acts of civil disobedience. I see a lot of that coming from the left, from, Democrats and progressives and liberals, and other people who care, other people who give a shit, who don't like the overreach of the Trump administration and Musk's Doge scam. But for the most part, the people who really could affect some kind of change, they've been neutered. They've been neutered by Trump. You know
what bothers me the most here? Knowing Trump as well as I do, having been the guy who watched his back, who demonstrated loyalty beyond loyalty to him for over a decade, closer to a decade and a half. This episode of Mea Culpa is brought to you by Graza, my new favorite olive oil. It's fresh, it's never blended, and it comes from a single type of olive, the Picual, straight out of Jaén, Spain, where over half of the world's olive oil is produced. So why Graza? Single origin goodness, that's why. Only one olive from one region. No mysterious blends. That means a traceable, a fresher product without mixing in any low grade or unknown oils. It's super fun. It has squeeze and spray bottles too, so there's no more messy tins or drippy spouts. Just aim, squeeze, and go. I mean, there are 3 types for any task that you have. One, they have something called Frizzle. That's their newest, with a higher 490 degree Fahrenheit smoke point, which is perfect for frying, crisping, or grilling. Sizzle at 410 degrees Fahrenheit, which is an everyday cooking oil for roasting, marinating, and sauteing. Then they have something called Drizzle, which is a bold, a punchy finishing oil that you sprinkle on your salads, you dip your bread in, or even you top it off on your ice cream. Look, let me be clear. My daughter is the actual chef in the house, and she uses olive oil on everything from pastas to preparing steak. I mean, not only does this cook well, it smells delicious. Plus, as a healthy eater, Graza's extra virgin oils, they are loaded with those heart and brain friendly polyphenols. So it's good for you. Look, so here's what you get. You get 10% off your first order on Graza's site. But I personally suggest grabbing the trio. That's all the 3 squeezy bottles, the Sizzle, the Frizzle, and the Drizzle, so that you're set for every style of cooking. So head right now to graza.co and use code Cohen to get 10% off of Trio, which includes, again, sizzle, frizzle, and drizzle, and get to cooking your next chef quality meal. Again, head to Graza, graza.co, and use code Cohen, Cohen, to get 10% off the Trio. And I love saying it, sizzle, frizzle, and drizzle. So get cooking now. If I was still in this administration, I would be sitting right now in the Oval Office with him. And I would say to him, Mr. President, do you realize, let me do this for you. Let me get him back. Let me go there, bring him back, and let me do it in your name, right? That this was wrong. You are the President of the United States, that there is nothing. No one is outside of your reach. This guy, Bukel, wants to turn around and say, I can't do it. You know what? I'm sending my guy over there. When he gets to the ground, I want a fucking military escort to the prison, all right? Just like Christine Ohm, I'd put on my tight-ass jeans and my, and my tight-ass fucking T-shirt so that my biceps are hanging out, right? And I can turn around with my ice flap jacket and an AR fucking 15 that, by the way, was loaded and also pointing at one of the other officers. Oh, wow. I would go there and I would bring him back. And then as we bring him back, treat him like a prisoner of war that was brought back. This was a mistake. You can't sue, right? You can't sue him because Bivens basically has gutted and neutered any. And this guy's not a U.S. citizen. The Constitution only protects U.S. citizens. And I'm not talking about due process rights, but you only have constitutional protection if, in fact, you are a U.S. citizen. You can't sue the United States, all right, on this because, again, the Dobbs decision neutered all Bivens claims. That's what I went to the Supreme Court on as a U.S. citizen. So he would have no monetary rights against Trump, the administration, or anybody, but bring him back and make yourself into the hero of constitutional protection, of due process rights, of rule of law, right? That's what I would say to him. You should be standing there proud on a fucking pedestal for the whole world to see that you did the right thing, right? It was a mistake because you are aggressively going after MS-13, Tren de Aragua, these gangs that are wreaking havoc on all Americans. There was a mistake. Okay, we acknowledge there was a mistake. But you know what I did? I immediately corrected it. Instead, remember when you folks used to tell you, your grandma and grandpa used to tell you the old adage that a lie begets a lie? Well, this is a lie, that he's Tren de Aragua, that he's MS-13, and that lie is just begetting another lie. And that, to me, undermines his credibility. It undermines his seriousness as the president of the United States. And that is the biggest mistake that these fucking enablers are making every single day. There's not one of these feckless fucking cowards that would have the balls to walk in like I did in 2017 when he asked me about the ban, the immigration ban. And I said, Mr. President, permission to speak freely? He goes, of course, Michael, do it. I said, you fucking kidding me? That's not an immigration ban. That's a Muslim ban. And you can't ban a religion. You want to ban people, say, from Somalia? Okay. You want to ban people from Afghanistan? Sure. There's a reason, a national security interest in doing so. But you can't ban a religion from the country. I said, who's feeding you this? And he said to me, Steve Miller and Steve Bannon. And I was like, why are you even listening to them? He goes, yeah, they'll get it right next time. I'm like, next time? Serious?
Michael, it's very interesting that you brought up, what you would have done, what you would have recommended if you were in there with him. And there have been so many instances of times when I thought about, like, that guy had low-hanging fruit that could have turned him into a fucking hero, right? Yep. So what you mentioned, that's one. That is probably the easiest thing, right, that could earn him some goodwill, right? Go back to the whole COVID thing. If he had taken COVID seriously,
Yep.
Not only could he have saved, hundreds of thousands of lives, he would have won. You want to talk about, the election was stolen. It wasn't stolen. You lost it yourself, in a horrendous way. But yeah, the reason that your advice would have fallen on deaf ears is because in order for him to take that advice, he has to have a decent bone in him. He has to have that inclination.
BCD, I love you, brother, but I got to tell you, I know Trump. I know him better than anyone. He may not take the advice, but he will listen to it. And when he listens to it, if it makes sense, if you can, it's not appealing to good bones or bad bones. It's appealing to his ego, to what elevates him. You have to express it to him in a certain way. You could be a champion. You will be honored for doing something like this, for standing up for rule of law as the chief law enforcement officer in this country. Which brings me to the next sort of topic, which is this tariff trade war. It's the same thing. If I was around him, I would say, boss, what are you doing? What are you doing? So you impose tariffs, you pull them back. You impose them, and then you pull some back. Now you create a temporary pause on just certain tech tariffs. The administration goes on, and then they signal that there are more that are forthcoming. The problem that you're doing, sir, with all due respect, is you are creating unnecessary uncertainty in the business and investor communities, in business and investor confidence. This doesn't inure to your benefit. What I would do for you is let me go out and let me determine how we're going to bring Canada, right, into some better trade negotiation deal so that you could have your win. Let me do the same with Italy and France and Germany and the EU and whatever, right? So that you could declare it as a win, even if it's not exactly as it was initially described, that it's 10% across the board, right? Whatever it might be, we will create it as a win. But this on and off, on and off, on and off thing, all you're doing is you're creating global destabilization of the economy. And what's happening is our allies, our trading partners, they're just going somewhere else. They're just going to, okay, fine, fuck you, America. You don't want to buy it from us because of this 145% tariff? We'll sell our shit to Canada. We'll sell it to Italy. We'll sell it to France, to Germany. Let me be clear. Maybe America might be the biggest market for these cheap goods, but now you go ahead and you send these cheap goods to France or Italy or Germany, they're going to be very happy to take it. And you know what? Mm-hmm. Americans will lose out.
Yeah.
We will be the ones that are paying more for every single item in any store. That's a fact.
Yeah. And so he's with his tariff war, his tariff trade war, he sent several messages to the world. One, the first message he sent was just wait him out, because just wait him out, because the first time he unleashed the tariffs, within like a day or two, he was like, you know what, I'm putting those on pause. So that was without Canada or Mexico bending, without them negotiating, without them really even doing anything. He just took them off. And then the second time was last week. He had it on for like, what was it? Was it a full day even? Was it even a full 24 hours? And then he was just like, you know what? 90 day pause. So he's telling the world, just wait me out, because I'm clearly negotiating against myself. The second thing he's told the world is that he doesn't have a coherent plan or strategy? Is this meant to be is this a negotiating tactic? No, it's not a negotiating tactic. And his administration, his people behind him, they're saying one thing and then they're contradicting themselves a minute later. Then it turns out that he was watching the bond market the whole time. So he doesn't have any, there's no concrete strategy or rule to his madness. And the other thing, the thing I thought about long before he even started this this idiotic trade war was that, dude, you could have just literally just coasted on President Biden's economy and said that you did it and just took credit for it.
He could have rode that right into the halls of infamy, based upon keeping the market at the absolute top. He could have been a hero of the economy. Yeah. Instead, think about the people who he's already hurt. People who voted for him. For example, they go ahead, they whack China with this tariff of 145%. Xi Jinping's been at this game a long time.
Yep.
What America is doing to itself, Xi Jinping in China have been unable to for years now. So what do? They say, yeah, you're going to do that to us? How about go fuck yourself in Macy's window, and here's a retaliatory tariff on you, including your fucking agricultural products like soy.
Yep.
You want to escalate tension, motherfucker? No problem. Here's the bigger problem. Now all of a sudden you have the American farmer, the entire agri sector of the United States, right now on life support. You turn around and you see these farmers. These are really the heart of America. Now, they may be, some of them are quite stupid, right? Spray painting on the bales of hay, Trump 2024, hanging the gigantic fucking MAGA flag on their barns, on the roofs and so on and shit. Meanwhile, the expression, fuck around, find out. Well, you did. But still, they are the heart of America, right? Anybody that watches any old movie, Westerns and so on, it's the farmers and the agri industry that made America. Now, all of a sudden, they have nobody to sell their stuff to, right? Nobody's buying it. China was the largest importer of soy, 80%. Now, wow. What are you going to do? Who's buying your stuff? The answer is nobody. So these poor farmers, think about it. These poor farmers, they only get paid when they deliver the goods to the buyer. They have to pay for fertilizer, they have to pay for the seed, they have to pay for the manpower in order to till the soil and to farm the land. Here's the big problem. So they're going to have 100 million metric tons of soy for sale. There's just no buyers for it, right?
Yeah.
What happens now to these poor farmers? What happens to the entire agri sector?
Well, they're going to have to be bailed out again, like they were in Trump's first term. And I wonder, out of all the people Trump has in his orbit, doesn't he have even a couple of people who, have access to the history from
Google?
A few years
to Google?
Google, to look at what happened the last time we did this. Can we look at that? Were we successful doing that the last time? Why are we doing this again? What's going to be the end result? It's not that hard. Consequential thinking is something I learned about at a very young age. You touch the stove, it's gonna burn your hand.
Right.
Every time there's certain immutable laws of physics, and I don't know if those laws of physics are the same as the laws that apply to economics, but I would think that they're pretty similar in, like, having a cause and effect, and he does.
BDD. Imagine this. Imagine this. One of these enablers around him, they turn around and they go, Alexa, how bad is it going to be if we end up, right, imposing 145% retaliatory tariff on China for the agri sector? Oh, that is going to be a fucking disaster. Anybody that would consider doing it would be considered a schmuck. That's what it would say.
I don't know if you've have you had a chance to use that Grok thing on Twitter yet. It's pretty funny because it's like Elon's thing, right? It's his thing. But if you ask Grok, like, who is the biggest, the person who does the most misinformation and disinformation on the internet, they will say Elon Musk. His own invention will say Elon Musk contributes the most misinformation, disinformation, and people have asked Grok, what is going to be the end result of this trade war, and invariably the result comes back, a recession, and that is real pain for not just a few American consumers. It's for a whole shitload of people.
And that shitload of people, BDD, that shitload of people are the ones that voted for him. They were the silent majority that said, we feel disenfranchised. We don't like the Democratic game. We don't like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris's ideas and the way that they're just sort of flippant. And by the way, they're not wrong. They're not wrong. All right. I get it. There was policy, but you got to be able to connect to the people, right? You have to be able to go to these deep ruby red communities and hold their hand and say, let's assume you were a ruby red Republican and you're in the agri industry. Let me explain to you what you voted for. You voted for the loss of your farm. You voted for having to be bailed out by a country that is not going to bail you out. So you voted against your own self-interest. You are going to have a year or 2 or 3 and maybe even 4 of so much hardship, so much loss, that the only people that are going to be buying your property, these 1,000+ acre farms, are going to be the billionaire class that's right now running this country like the oligarchs that they are, to turn them into like weekend snowmobile locations or a amusement park for themselves for 7 days out of the year. That's what's going to happen, because they're going to buy your property from the banks dirt cheap. You voted for it. Now we need you. We need you to be able to take back sanity in this country with real policy, with real direction, not promises that I'll fix it in 24 hours. I'm going to stop this in 24 hours. Nobody can do for the economy what I can do for it. It's broken under the Biden administration. It was all hell. We were going into a recession. Inflation was through the roof, blah, blah, blah. That's not true, right? That's not true. And you need to hold these people their hands, and you need to bring them back. It's what I call, of course, grassroots reorganization. Because if we don't do that, we will never, ever recapture the House, the Senate, or the White House.
My issue, my concern is that a lot of Trump voters were duped with that with the trans issue. They weaponized the hell out of the trans issue, and they made it seem like it was a much bigger issue than it actually is. Well, we don't want men playing in girl sports, and there's only 1% of the population, maybe less than 1% of the American population that identifies as trans. But they made it seem like, behind every corner, there's lurking a trans person who wants to sneak into the stall with your daughter in the bathroom and look at her privates, and that's not the issue. Trans people aren't causing you to lose money. They're not causing the prices of everything to go up in the grocery store and the price of your the value of your 401k to plummet. That's not causing that. It's Donald Trump single-handedly destroying the value of your 401k and increasing the prices of your groceries. He said he was going to start lowering grocery prices on day one. I don't know why so many people are willing to give him a pass on that shit. He said it. It was a campaign promise. It is on video after video after video of him saying it. And now when we remind you guys that, hey, he said he was going to do this. Well, give him some time. How much time does he need? He said day one. I would say give him 5 fucking days. If he said he was going to do it on one day.
But he didn't tell you which one day he was talking about. That's the whole thing, right? I mean, it's
such garbage.
I want to say, when we started this conversation, we're talking really about, what's going on at the schools, what's going on with the Trendaragua, what's going on with MS-13, and these detentions. And I think we will both acknowledge, and I think all of my listeners, whether they're Democrat or they're pro-Republican, have to acknowledge that these detentions are a means to suppress dissent amongst at least, and not limited to, but for certain immigrant communities. You ever wake up after a week of nonstop political chaos, look at yourself in the mirror and think, damn, I aged like a president in his second term. Yeah, well, me too. Long days, longer news cycles, and a diet that consists mostly of rage and revenge will do just that to you. That's why I gave Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet a shot. And let me tell you, it's like a full body reset without the misery of actually fasting. Prolon's a plant-based nutrition program of soups, snacks, teas that keeps your body in a fasting state while still feeding you. It works at the cellular level to jumpstart rejuvenation and help your cells act like they've just had a motivational speaker and a green juice. It's real science. It's real results. And now, boom, they've rolled out the next-gen 5-day program. And now, boom, they've rolled out the next-gen 5-day program. It's 100% organic soups and teas, richer flavor, and ready-to-eat meals. So even a certain president couldn't screw it up. Developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by legitimate top medical centers, Prolon has been shown to support biological age reduction, metabolic health, skin appearance, fat loss, and energy. Look, I did the 5-day program, and no joke, I felt better, lighter, cleaner. Now I'm all in for next gen. And here's the deal for my Mea Culpa listeners. For a limited time, you can be first in line to experience the new next gen at special savings. Prolon is offering Mea Culpa with Michael Cohen listeners 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. So go now and visit prolonlife.com/mea culpa. That's PROLONLIFE.com/mea culpa to claim your 15% discount as well as your bonus gift. That's prolonlife.com/mea culpa. Give your body a break. It deserves it. Believe me. No doubt in my mind. You turn around and just look at what's going on with foreign students who are being detained and literally shipped out of state for participating in what Trump and his enablers have determined to be illegal protests. The problem that I have as a lawyer, even though disbarred, and I will get my license back hopefully very soon, there is absolutely no clear definition of what constitutes an illegal protest. So the question that I really want to ask you is how does this ambiguity affect free speech rights and due process? Something I know a lot about, considering I had my First Amendment right completely violated.
It shouldn't affect it at all. I mean, the First Amendment gives us the right to free speech and to express that in a protest. You know, the First Amendment protects like the Ku Klux Klan and Nazis, protects their rights to have their nasty little marches without being assaulted. And you know, there's plenty of people out there who want to punch a Nazi in the face, but they are protected from that by the First Amendment. And I sure as hell think this world would be a whole lot better if we didn't have those people doing those things, you know, but it is their right as American citizens to voice their opinion about any number of disgusting beliefs topics. So likewise, we have the right to express our opinions about this administration. One of the things that makes America great is that we can speak out against the leadership, whoever it is. You know, the we don't have a king anymore. We don't have to be fearful of speaking out against a king, and nor should we. And the great tradition of being an American citizen is that you can speak out against the power structure. And if we lose that, then we cease to be America. So
well, we are losing it, though. That's the whole thing. We are losing it. How do you know that? So you have this young girl from Tufts. You have this student, Mahmoud Khalil, from Columbia. What did they do? The judge said, for example, you cannot take this young lady, this Tufts journalist, right? I mean, look, with all due respect to those that I too don't like what they stand for. I don't like the topics or her writing, what she stands for. I happen to be pro-Israel. I also believe in a two-state solution, but that's a whole nother story, right? I don't agree with some of the stuff that these protesters are saying, not as much as I disagree with the white supremacists in Charlottesville that were marching down the streets holding tiki torches, screaming, "Jews will not replace us," which is a reminiscent slogan from the 1930s, from the Holocaust, to which my father is a Holocaust survivor. So I take this shit pretty fucking personal, all right? I don't agree with them, but you know what I do agree with you on? The First Amendment, that you have a right within which to say the most vulgar things. But yet this administration has somehow managed to twist this Constitution into a pretzel, literally into a pretzel, claiming that these protests, illegal protests, are a problem for America's national security. The same thing that they're using for the detention of these suspected gang members. Everything now is national security because the Supreme Court gave Trump unlimited immunity on anything that he does, so long it's in the national interest of this country's protection. This to me is a real problem.
You know, every time I start talking about Trump and his fascist instincts and tendencies, it gets me worked up. And then I stand back and I realize that despite that, and despite his best, worst efforts to inflict some real damage to our democracy, there have been a number of court verdicts that have held up. You know, that have held up. There have been legal efforts to fight back, and you know, it might not be as flashy or as spectacular as we'd like to see, court battles. They're very wonky. If you don't speak legalese, you're kind of, what happened here? But at the end of the day, we still have people fighting the good fight, like Mark Elias and his team, and so many other
Norm Eisen,
lawyers.
Sure.
Yeah, so many other good lawyers and even federal judges, and I might even say there are judges that were appointed by Trump who still believe in the rule of law. So it is trying my patience, and it's like a terrifying roller coaster ride. But at the end of the day, I'm still holding on to faith and belief that we are going to come out of this on top. We are going to win this battle in the end.
Well, I think that let me give you a tiny bit of pushback on that one. I'll give you a tiny bit of pushback again.
Okay.
Knowing the man, the wizard behind the curtain. Mm-hmm. Think about this. You turn around and you said that there are some very good wins that that defendants are securing against this administration. And these wins were coming from some of the most powerful and some of the most well-respected white glove law firms in this country. Trump realizing that, what did he do? What did he do? He fucked them where they breathe, to the tune of just about $1 billion in free legal service to his administration to maintain either they do it, they capitulate, or they lose access to federal buildings. He took an innocuous line that would prevent a lawyer from entering into a federal building, which to me is tantamount to extortion.
Yeah.
When I say that if these things aren't raising concerns about coercion and the independence of the legal profession, I'm underestimating the damage that this is absolutely going to cause. You cannot have these small law firms, no matter how good that they are, fighting the government who has unlimited access, unlimited resources. And now, by the way, they have access for free to the tune of about $1 billion. The greatest legal minds, the biggest beasts in the legal profession at their disposal. That, to me, my brother, that's suppression.
Mm. Yeah, that is, and that is frightening too. Look, I said what I said, and I stand by it, because at the end of the day, man, all we have right now is hope. That at the end of the day, that's all we have. If we don't have hope, the opposite of hope is despair. And I defy that. Part of my name, the BDD, that last D is the most important one. It's the defiant one. And I stand in defiance of despair. So yeah, sometimes they say it's darkest before the dawn. I have to keep hope burning like a fire in my belly, because I'm fighting not just for myself and for my family. I'm fighting for your family, and I'm fighting for the family of my neighbors and everyone else that I know and love, and the people that I don't even know. I'm fighting for this country, this country that I love. I don't have any plans of, how people say, oh, if Trump wins, I'm moving to Canada or moving to Europe. I never had any plans to do that. My plan is, if Trump wins, I'm fucking staying and fighting as hard as I possibly can to ensure that we don't lose this beautiful thing that we call democracy. And it is a beautiful thing. I love living in America, and I have no plans on ever living anywhere else, unless, of course, if I hit the lottery. Then it's a different discussion.
And then you move into the coast, the Amalfi Coast. I hear you on that. BDD, my brother. Love you, my friend. Thank you for joining me as always here on Mea Culpa. Appreciate you. Appreciate what you're doing. You keep being you. Keep helping, right? Which is what you do, right? To put forth out there, all of these facts and the information so that we could prevent the mechanisms that right now these enablers are trying to effectuate to basically turn what we believe to be normal executive power and to prevent them from undermining the legislative authority that this country was built on. And I'm referring, of course, to our tripartite system. So I thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you, Mike. Can I plug my my Substack?
Of course you can.
Yeah, to your lovely listeners, I would like to say, please check out Defiant Dispatches on Substack. It's a good read. It's me mostly ranting about stuff, and
lots to rant about.
Yeah, that's right.
As I said, appreciate you, my brother, and I will see you soon. And we'll do a Substack together. We'll do a Substack together anytime that you want. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.